the issue of constituency projects and representing the people. Now, we know that the way this federation is set up right now, you have, of course, the National Assembly, but you have state houses of assembly that work with the governors. And you have local government authorities as well. Now, if it's the responsibility of state and local governments to ensure that local governments and communities, wards, towns are developed with state resources, with local government resources, then why should the federal government use federal resources that should be used nationally for local projects? This has been a major issue.
That is interesting. Who is the federal government? That's the question. Who is the federal government? I don't think federal government is a ghost. The federal government is the individual Nigerian citizens and the various local communities that make up Nigeria. And they are the ones that say, we the people. And they gave us freely this mandate. And that is why we are here to represent them. You see, the whole arrangement is just to make, is for administrative convenience. Now, if you are saying federal resources, is it not the same people you take your ballot box to and ask them to vote? They vote from their box, polling unit. And the polling unit is now aggregated into the various layers up until where you are able to say, oh, this is the total number of votes in a federation. And that is why a president will be elected. So you can't come here and say federal resources. Who is the federal government? The people are the federal government. And one point I need to make very clear here is this. What the federal government is doing is where there are clarity of exclusivity from the Constitution, exclusive list, they take charge. But it does not stop where you have concurrent. The state and local governments are having. It does not stop the federal government from having an intervention. Because intervention is just to supplement whatever the state and the federal government are doing. And I don't think there is anything wrong in that.
No, but sir, interventions are optional. But what we're hearing from the National Assembly is that they're mandatory. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is there is this notion out there right now. If you talk to some senators and some members of the House of Reps behind closed doors, they'll tell you, look, there are political realities. We're just in front of an election. And the reality of our politics as it is today is you cannot run and you cannot win an election without some sort of funding. Now, what do you say to those who suggest that constituency projects have been a means by which the federal government can funnel funds to senators, to legislators, to enable them do whatever it is they want to do in order to have compromise on things like a budget?
Well, you see, it's easier for people to make any kind of allegation or assertion. But the reality will always remain the reality. And in this respect, the reality is that Nigerians voted for a federal government. Nigerians voted for senators. Nigerians voted for House of Reps. And those representatives, when they come to the National Assembly, I can't come and sit down and just see projects being executed in other areas. I'm representing Niger North, like I said. As we speak, there are 1,054 kilometers of federal roads in my federal constituency. I'm interested in how those roads are going to be repaired so that our people can go about their economic activity. And so for us, let me make one point very clear. If not for the benefit of the constituency project, there are component parts of Nigeria today that will never ever know that there is anything called federal government other than on paper. And so for me, that is happening is to give people the benefit of the fact that we queue up to vote for a particular person. That is the benefit. And anybody saying that people vote in a democracy not to get anything in return by way of developmental projects, I think the person is just being hypocritical. And for me, as far as I'm concerned, let's make it very clear. The entire system may not be working fully as we want it. And there is no system that works perfect. Even I, as a human being, my system sometimes gives in. And that's why I fall sick. So, and if there is sickness, what I need to do is to understand what the sickness is, approach a professional who will diagnose me and tell me what medication I should take.
Senator, before we go to Lagos, because Lagos would like to speak with you as well, I want to ask you one more question, and that is, Nigerians will definitely want to know, when you look at the 2018 budget, if you look at, for example, what happened in 2017, being started in June, and now look at the situation we're in, how do we stop this cycle? For example, now the Senate yesterday is asking that, they're essentially saying wait until March because 2017 hasn't been implemented. So now we have to wait until March for 2018. Now if we get to 2018 and we only sign that into law in March or June or whatever it turns out to be, then we're in the same situation again, and it's an election year. What would you say to Nigerians who want to see this budget passed, and what would it take from the executive arm working with you to make sure that that gets done for the sake of Nigerians?
Well, that is very interesting. As much as we have expressed our desire to work in partnership with the executive to get the federal government working for the benefit of Nigerians, where there are problems, it is only when we dialogue, where we interact, where we engage, that we can understand these problems. Now, let me recall one fact. The present template of budgeting that we're using is anchored on what they call the medium-term expenditure framework. And the medium-term expenditure framework is based on a kind of rolling plan cycle of 3 years. What this means, like I said, I was in the executive side, and as far back as 2003, 2004, when the medium-term expenditure framework was being brought in, I recall vividly the whole idea of that framework is to have a project that will run for 3 years maximum. Now, when you have that project, year one, you will tell, based on your, the design of the project, how much you require for year one. Based on that, whatever you are able to do, then you roll over the balance into year two. Year two, you fund it again. Whatever you are able to do, you roll it over to year three. Now, some projects may roll out in year one, some may roll out in year two, some may roll out in year three. The ones that have not rolled out in year three, then you sit down again and appraise them and see the need either to continue or to discontinue. And I think this is something that I would say within this context has been lost.